this first video, I will introduce the move order of the Dutch. The Dutch defense arises from the moves d4, f5, right away breaking the symmetry of the position. There are two common setups in the Dutch defense, the Leningrad variation and the Stonewall variation. The Stonewall is a completely different pawn structure with pawns on f5, e6, d5, and c6. In my opinion, this is a more solid option, but also less exciting and dynamic. For this reason, I will be purely focused on the Leningrad Dutch setups, where the pawns are on d6 and g6 instead. Now, unlike most openings, this Leningrad setup can also be used against the majority of White's first moves. The big three that I cover here are d4, f5, the regular Dutch. Also, we have the English c4, f5, and the Reti, knight f3, f5. So in one, you have a weapon against 3 out of 4 main first moves. Of course, against the first move e4, the Dutch defense unfortunately does not exist because the f5 square is defended. For now, I will introduce the main lines. There are many different move orders that White can select, but often the positions that arise are very, very similar or exactly the same. The most common and the most dangerous setup from the White side would be to fianchetto the bishop on g3. This will be our main line, and I will go over lots of theory there. The knights also go on f3 and c3, and as we will see, this can start in a variety of different ways. But for now, I want to show you some move order tricks that I find very important. The variation on the third move, knight c3, is a very popular move from White, and it looks very natural. Usually, even in the main lines, the knight will end up here anyway, and it will simply transpose into our main line theory. But I want to make a very important distinction here. Here, it is good to play d6 instead of g6 right away. At least that is the move order that I prefer, although g6 is played more often. So the reason why I do not like to start with g6 is because White has an option of playing h4 now. This move is only third in popularity from the White side, but it is very unpleasant in my opinion. So if you continue normal development with bishop g7, you will run into such moves like h5, and suddenly the king will start feeling really unsafe, and White will take over the center with e4. So already White is better here and has a very good advantage. And as we see this diagonal that has been opened up with our first move, it has now been exposed, and there are threats of the rook taking on h5, and these are just unpleasant positions. So bishop g7 is considered the inaccuracy here, but you could react to this h4 move with d6. So objectively, this is not bad because now h5 is still met with knight h5 and e4. This is fine to play for black, but I personally find it rather unpleasant to have to deal with this h-file being open, with rook h5 threats, and the king being slightly weaker. So my recommendation is always to go d6 first. So this doesn't change our positions at all from what we're going to get in the future, but just to start with it is better because it eliminates the move h4. So now h4, if White still plays it, it can be met with many things. We can start even taking the center with e5 ourselves. We can play knight d7. There are many good options, but now we will not play g6. But usually White will not do this unless they are provoked with the g6 move from the black side. So with starting with d6, we are now waiting for White to play knight f3 first, and then we play g6, and we are transposing to our main lines. So in the grand scheme of things, nothing changed with our third move d6, but it eliminated those positions with h4 and h5. So going back to the sidelines, knight f3, it's not a sideline, but it simply transposes to a lot of other variations that I will be showing, either the main line or the other setups. And another quick and tricky action from white can be to hold off on knight f3 and play for a very quick e4. For example, like this. Here, the rule of thumb is to always take that pawn and then continue with development. For example, like this. Simply to take it and continue taking the center and developing our pieces. Something like this would be an option to just simply continue in this fashion. That was it for the move order tricks, and we will now go to the main and the most popular line, which is the fianchetto. It can come from different move orders. As you see, the bishop goes there, the knight goes to its regular spot, and this is our main position and the one we will focus on from now on.